for joining us on another Eye on You program. This particular program is brought to you by the University of Massachusetts Lowell in collaboration with Lowell Telecommunications. Today we have a really special programming and it features improving the workplace for Brazilians. And we have two special guests at the beginning of the segment, Professor Eduardo Segueira from the University of Massachusetts Lowell and doctoral student Adrian Barbosa. But before I introduce them to you, I would like to greet our special University of Massachusetts Lowell students. We have Dan Baldner. Dan, what's your major?
I'm a criminal justice major.
And are you graduating?
I'm a senior this year, yes.
Okay, terrific. And to Dan's left, we have Jen Cantwell. Jen, I understand that you're a supervisor in the gym?
At the gym, yep, at the rec center.
University. And what's your major?
Liberal arts.
Okay. And then to our right, I would like to introduce Professor Eduardo Segueira. I'm going to try to roll my R's.
That's good enough.
And Dr. Segueira, you're with the Department of Community Health and Sustainability.
Yes.
How long have you been with the department for?
I've been in this department for the last year only, actually 2 years now. Before that, I was with the Department of Work Environment, where I've been for many years now.
And I understand today that you're going to talk about a special project that you've been working on with the Brazilian community.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And then to Dr. Segueira's right, we have, wait a minute, Andrea Barbosa.
Yes.
Andrea, I understand that you're a doctoral student?
Yes, I'm a doctoral student in Work Environment Department during 2 years. I'm in the second year right now.
Oh, that's terrific.
And I work in the same project that Professor Eduardo.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to start off the questioning. I'll start it off for Dr. Segueira. Can you tell us what about the workplace, the work environment for Brazilians, kind of leading into the project that you're doing? What was the problem that you discovered in the workplace for Brazilian immigrants?
Yeah, what happened was I've been in Massachusetts for the last 10 years. I moved here to do my doctoral degree actually at UMass Lowell. I'm also Brazilian. And after living here for a while, I started to see injuries and especially fatalities of Brazilian workers. And I started asking the question why that was happening. And what became a concern to me is most of the fatalities that I was hearing about were preventable. And I got involved as a volunteer in the Brazilian Immigrant Center. And by hanging out there and talking to folks and getting to know more the Brazilian immigrants here, which I hadn't had the opportunity to do it before, I started to realize what the problems were over time and the need to do something about it, especially as it related to their working conditions and how that affected their health. And that's how the project that I started was initiated, because of this concern with their health and safety at the workplace.
What about the working conditions specifically? I mean, is there any one incident that you can tell the audience about that kind of really stuck out in your mind?
Yeah, there was one fatality that happened about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, where the situation was a worker was working with a machine. He did not get training on how to operate the machine. He did something wrong because of that, and he was crushed by the machine. And when I started listening and reading about what caused the accident, so-called accident, was not really an accident, it was a situation that was dangerous, that the worker was not informed enough about how to handle the machinery or the equipment, and the situation was such that it raised to my attention what I already knew, but in this case it became very clear that Brazilian immigrants can actually die for lack of training, for lack of the proper protections in the workplace. This was one fatality that I can remember that led to this concern. Other incidents that I saw several were people coming with burns and sometimes cuts and lacerations without a finger, or with serious falls from construction jobs, and that became more and more of a reality in the Brazilian Immigrant Center. I saw these workers come and I said we have to do
Another
something
kind
about
of
that.
information that we
Let
can
me,
give here.
ask one
in
of the
case
students.
that
Dan, do you
they
have a
already
question?
had some accidents
Yes.
or some
I was wondering
issue
if you guys could
in the
just
workplace,
discuss some of the
we can
research
refer
that the Cobweb
to
Project
the
is
same,
currently involved in
to
and some of its
our
intended
lawyers, so we
results.
can refer
Okay.
to Brazilian
So Project
Immigrant Center.
Cobweb is short for
Oh,
Collaboration
also
for
we
Better
can
Work
give,
Environment for Brazilian immigrants in
information to help the
Massachusetts.
family, because it's not
And
just
what we
the
decided to
worker.
do
We
4
are
years ago when we
worried,
started
are
this
concerned
project,
about the
one of
family
the things
too.
we started to
So
do is
the
to
most
understand better the
important thing is
demographics
to
of
give
Brazilians,
them this kind of
because
information,
what the
how to
census
access,
tells
how
us
to have a
about the
family
number of
care,
Brazilian
and
residents
how
is
to
clearly
prevent
not
problems
accurate.
in the workplace.
Good number of
Can you
Brazilians
tell
are
us
not
any specific
documented,
stories that
and
illustrate
they
these
did not
points?
necessarily respond to the
Well, we
census
have
in the year
many
2000,
here.
and even after the year
It's
2000.
very common
Many
that
more
you come
Brazilians
here
arrived
to
in,
United
in
States.
Massachusetts, in the United
Like I
States,
said before,
and we
it's
know
a
that the numbers do
different
not
weather,
reflect
it's a
reality.
different place,
So
it's
what we
different
decided to do,
languages.
for example,
You know, the first
is to do
obstacle that
a
you have,
count,
you
a
don't
better
speak
counting of
English.
Brazilians, and
It's so
one way
hard
of
for
doing that
people
was
look
we
for
had
help.
access to
If they wait
passport
until the
data
last minute
that
to be
Brazilians
seen by a doctor.
requested
So many
in the
Brazilians
Brazilian
come
consulate
here,
in Boston.
and when they are
So we
sick
had
or they need
access
some help,
to
they will go to the
over
emergency
8,000
room.
passports
So
for
it's
1
the
year
first thing that
for the
we
year
try to
2003.
orientate
And that allows us,
against
for
them.
example, to
This is
figure
not
out
the
where
case.
folks
So
would
I
come
can
from in
tell
Brazil,
you
from which
many
states in Brazil,
histories
and
of
where they
people
were
who
living in
came
Massachusetts.
here
And
after
by
being
doing
seen
that,
at the emergency room,
we were
and they
able to
came
say,
with
now we're able to say,
bills,
that there are
huge
Brazilians in
bills,
over 200 towns in
because they didn't
Massachusetts,
know that we-
which is
how to
different than
apply
what we
for
thought
mass
before,
help,
that
how
they
to
were
get
concentrated in a
free
few
care.
areas.
So
Now we
when they
know that
come here,
we
they are desperate
believe that pretty much
because they
everywhere in
were sick,
Massachusetts,
they went,
it would
but they
be
didn't
hard to find a
understand that
place
they-
where there are
they,
non-Brazilians
they need
living
to
right
pay
now
for the
in the
bills.
different towns in Massachusetts.
So
For example,
in this case,
a
we
second
try
one
to
that we
help
did that was
them.
more
We
specific
try
to health and
fill the
safety is we
forms,
did a
asking for
survey
mass help
of over
or
600
care,
Brazilians,
and also
asking
we
any
try
number
to
of
make
questions regarding the
appointments so
demographics,
they can have a
regarding their
follow-up
workplace
appointment with the
conditions,
primary care.
regarding their health, regarding their participation in
And what
civic
is the
life
future
in the
of
United
Cobweb and
States,
your involvement with
if they were members of churches or not, if they
already,
answered the
you
last
know,
census
we
in the year
tried,
2000
like
or
I
not,
said, link
and that will
people
allow
with
us,
health
we are analyzing
services.
this data,
And
soon we're
with
going to
the
have the
Cobweb project,
results,
I
to have a better
personally, I
picture
had the
of
opportunity
what is the
to meet
overall
more
situation
people in
of the
community.
Brazilian workers
And also,
in Massachusetts.
we
For example, this is a
started- we
second
have a
example that I
radio
can give.
program on
Before I
UMass
throw the
Law,
question to Jen, I wanted to ask you, you were
91.5
talking about the
FM.
reality. What is the reality as far as how many Brazilians are?
Came from the community.
You said that there were only a certain
Yeah.
percentage that were documented.
Yes.
How many do you believe are actually here from
Well,
preliminary data that you have,
wha-
or
what the census does estimates, annual estimates. It's called American Community Surveys. So they do a count in the year 2000, and then every year they estimate the growth of that population based on how many people left the country, how many people were born, how many people came into the country or became citizens, etc. They put all this data together and they do an estimation. The latest data for 05 was, let's say, to round numbers, over 80,000 Brazilians. We believe there is at least double that number in Massachusetts. The problem is we cannot prove this because a lot of this difference can only be accounted for when you do a new count, a new census in the year 2010. In the meantime, what the data has shown is that the census has figured out ways of estimating. And before, in the year 2000, they said there were about 36,000. In the year 05, 84, over 80, as I said before, in round numbers. So now more than double the numbers. We believe it's getting closer to the real number, but it's probably much more than that. Some folks that have knowledge of the community in different places say it's over 200,000. But it's a lot of guesstimate at this point unless you do a more household-based count, which we are planning to do as well.
Jen, do you have a question for Andrea Barbosa?
Sure. I was wondering how you first became involved with the project, because I